Hello, this is an introduction to isometric view drawing and drafting. And isometric is a perspective view that uses three sides of the object to really convey your idea. So you'll need a pencil and a ruler, as shown, and we're going to mark off 26 centimeters. So 26 centimeters is really just going to be my two reference points, and I'm going to find the center point of that 26, which will be 13 centimeters, and I'm going to mark that off as well. Now, I'm going to make a vertical line down my page, which will act as the height of my object that I'm drawing. And now I've done a little math to figure out what my scale is, and we'll cover that in a second, but for right now I wanted to say that 12 centimeters is the height of my object, and since I'm going to make a squared top to my object, I want that to be 3 centimeters, because overall I'll add 15 centimeters, top to bottom, for my entire drawing. This will keep everything nice and even. So as you see here, I'm dragging the line down to 15 centimeters, and I'm going to mark off, there's my bottom, and here's my top at 3. This is going to give me an overall height of about 96 inches, because in my scale, 1 centimeter is going to be equal to 8 inches. Now, we're going to make a diamond shape using our reference points from the bottom of our object to those 2 points that we measured out before, and all of our drawing is going to fit within that diamond shape. And this is going to be used as our reference. We like to make these reference lines because, frankly, it tells us not only how we got to our drawing, but also it gives us points that we can later use and lines that we can later use for any other drawings we need to make later on. Great, so there's your diamond. Everything's going to fit within that diamond. So the next thing we're going to do is we're going to figure out how wide our object should be. Now, I've marked this off to 5 centimeters in total, so 2.5 to my midpoint. And that's really just, again, because I've done some math in the background, but if you want to think of this in terms of how it relates to our object, just draw the vertical line all the way down and measure the base at the end of drawing those 2 vertical lines at 5 centimeters. What you'll notice is that they also will be 3 centimeters. Now, I also have to determine the height of the object that I want to make and make a couple notes along the way. So I know that this is 96 inches, and that's really just for me, the person drawing it, and it's going to go up to that top part, and I'll be looking down. So now I'm going to draw the top of my object so that I can see into it. And I'm simply connecting the dots. Everything's even, everything's equal to look inside of my object. I have a top, a left side, and a right side. Now we're going to come down and we're going to measure the object, and I want to go with 4 centimeters on both sides. This is going to give it a nice overall height. And again, those lines that we're going to connect will run parallel, so we're going to also measure 4 centimeters to our middle line. And at the end, we'll just connect the dots. Simply and easy, everything will equal, and we'll have a true isometric view. See how it's parallel on the bottom? We do that because it's better, to check our work. So, as you can tell, now I have a bottom, I'm looking into the top, I have a left panel and a right panel. Now we need to know the thickness of the object we're making. Again, we've done a little math in the background, but we're figuring out that we need 2-inch panels. So if we need 2-inch panels, we're going to mark off 0.25 centimeters. And you're seeing here that I'm marking off 2.5, sorry, not centimeters, millimeters, so that I can quickly make the 2 panels that will equal 2 inches. Great, so now I have all my points. So we'll connect those lines. We want to make sure that they run parallel to the top line. And when they equal, then we know to move on. Great, so now I have my outward facing panel marked out at 2 inches. Now I'm going to do my interior panel. This is just a note. I don't like this line, so I'm going to erase it and I'm going to redraw it, because you always have that option. These lines are really just for you as a reference. These are called building lines. We use them for constructing the draft of our object that we want to submit to somebody, because someone has to make this thing. So now my lines are nice and even, well spaced, and I think that they look pretty optically equal. And when I measure them, they're all within the range. So now we're going to draw our interior panels. Again, we're just connecting the dots that we made earlier. So we have the equally spaced 2-inch panels, so there's 2 panels per side, and we can continue with the construction of our drawing. Great. So it looks like we have about, we got to flip it over, 8 centimeters to work with here, from the top of our object to the bottom of our base. So we're going to use our scale again. We're going to mark off 1 centimeter so that we can actually, quickly as a reference, figure out what 1 centimeter equals. So in this scale, we have 1 centimeter, and that's going to equal out to the 8 inches that we talked about. And we'll draw a line as reference. Wonderful. So now we have our scale, and we'll dive back into our drawing. So I like to give myself little details like these bump outs for where I think parts will come together. It's just notes. And then I'm going to add rows for my flora, because I want this to actually be a planter with multiple plants on either side, or on all sides of the object. So like we said earlier, we're going to mark out every centimeter where one of those rows will go. Great, so now we have our scale. And we're going to freehand it here because, we feel pretty confident that we can make parallel lines. Let's just see what happens. Uh-oh, looks like we're getting off track. Keep in mind that we use this perspective rendering with undistorted presentation, so we can actually show the object's principal dimensions. Now, when things don't end up being parallel, they don't actually reflect the dimensions, but also they skew everything based on our scale. So what we really should do is probably take a quick look and see that we've done something wrong. I mean, right there, you can tell this isn't even. This doesn't make any sense given what we've done in the rest of the drawing. So, here's a suggestion. Let's erase that whole side and make it parallel. So we're going to do the same thing we did in the middle, where we measure out every centimeter that we have as a point of reference. And then we're just going to connect the dots and get a nice, evenly spaced row for each one of our plants, or in this case, plant groupings. You also should keep in mind that materials play a big role when we think about drawing and when we think about engineering, or really anything in general that uses physical objects. So, if I have a 96-inch planter with, well, you do the calculations on the base, that bottom base is going to have to be cement. That's pretty big for anything we're going to put in the greenhouse. So, keep in mind that this is a reference drawing, and that those are the kinds of problems that you'll be thinking about and fixing when you create your sketch. So we're going to connect the dots again, and everything should line up. We should get some nice parallel, even lines, and really use this perspective view to our advantage of showing all three sides of the object, but also maintaining all the relationships that relate to our scale. That way anybody else could pick up our drawing and understand not only what's going on, but possibly add to or make comments on certain things regarding their field of interest when using our drawing. Now we'll go back and add those bump outs that seem a little bit more appropriate this time around. And what do you think we're going to do? That's right, we're going to measure them. So we end up with about 2 millimeters on each side, and since I've measured it, I know that that's what it is, and I'll just connect those dots and get nice, evenly spaced lines that correspond to actual physical relationships. So now that reads as it's actually inset or offset from the base, and that's great. So we have our left, our right, and as before shown, the top. Everything we need. And we're going to add a little bit of grass, because in this planter we're concerned about weight, but more so about covering up everything up to the top, because we're going to need a water tank or something else to feed this wonderful, wonderful planter. Keep in mind that this is an expression and used for you. You're using these construction lines, as they're called, to guide your drawing. So anything that's useful for you, notes, anything of merit that you want to call out in your drawing, this is the time to do it. And frankly, you can always go back and fix your drawing. And it looks like we might need to add a little lead and go back and highlight that plant in the background so that we really see what's going on with our object. And I like to erase the guidelines, but leave a little inkling of where they were so that in case I have to draw it again, I know what I'm doing. It also serves as a great guideline for anyone else that wants to add to my drawing or make comments. So, that looks to be our planter, and that's about all that you're going to need to do for today's lesson. Show us the three-dimensional idea of what it is that you're building. I hope you enjoyed this. Ask us if you have any questions at all.